Welcome to our talk entitled Hidden in Plain Sight, Overlooked Results and Other Errors in Evaluating Online Laboratory Results. I'm Helen Monkman, and I co-wrote this paper with Leah McDonald, Christian Knorr, Jim Tanaka, and Blake Lesselroth. People have greater access than ever before to their personal health information. For example, many use online portals to view their laboratory or lab results for things such as COVID-19 tests, pap smears, and blood work. Portals are lauded for their potential to support patient decision-making, improve patient safety, and encourage richer conversations with healthcare providers. Many Canadians have access to lab results from tests done in the community, and some also have access to results from labs done in hospital. However, the results are provided through different portals, which may have different reporting formats and data displays. Other countries may also require users to access lab reports through different portals depending on where the samples were collected. There are 2 steps necessary to conduct a visual query, such as searching a display for Waldo, doing a word search, or looking for abnormal results in an online lab report. The first step is to determine what you're looking for. The second step is to look for possible targets that match the characteristics of what you're looking for. This study examined the extent to which participants without medical expertise made errors identifying lab results in a typical online lab report display. Typically, online lab results indicate when a value is outside its respective reference range using a flag. However, these flags can be colors, letters, bolding, or icons, and often they vary between systems. Further, tabular displays may not effectively communicate the magnitude of an abnormal finding or prioritize the findings. Although flags are undoubtedly beneficial for highlighting abnormal results, some results may not include reference ranges and therefore cannot be flagged even if they warrant attention. For example, tests with a binary outcome, such as positive or negative, or a qualitative description might not be flagged regardless of whether the outcome is atypical or typical. The University of Victoria's Human Research Ethics Board approved this study. We recruited 25 participants who were 19 years old or older, had previous experience using online lab results, and were neither practicing nor studying to be healthcare professionals. We paid them $20 Canadian to compensate them for their time. We used a questionnaire to collect demographic information and information about their previous experiences using online lab results. We interviewed participants individually using Zoom video conferencing software. During the interviews, we showed participants the stimulus using the screen sharing feature and asked, "Are there any values outside the reference ranges?" The stimulus did not fit on a single screen, so I scrolled through or magnified the display at participants' request. If participants were vague in their response, for example, "That one's out of range," the interviewer asked them to clarify which test they meant. As in the real world, participants could take as long as they wanted on this task. This is what the stimulus looked like. And here are the abnormal values we wanted to determine if participants would detect. The hemoglobin A1C over total hemoglobin was flagged as high, and so were potassium and creatinine. The eGFR value indicated mild to moderately decreased kidney function. We analyzed the interview transcripts and, as necessary, referred back to the recordings for clarification to determine if participants correctly identified the 3 flagged abnormal results, detected that the eGFR was abnormally low, and if they identified any normal values as out of range, that is, false positives. Most of the sample identified as women who were Canadian-born, spoke English at home, and had at least a post-secondary certificate or degree. As shown in the figure, participants were fairly evenly distributed amongst the age categories, with the exceptions of the highest and lowest categories. All of the participants had at least 2 years of experience using online lab results. Most of them looked at their lab results several times a year or even more often, and almost all of them had used the community lab portal, which displays results very much like the stimulus. Only 2 participants made no errors reviewing the lab results stimulus. That is, 2 participants identified all 3 flagged results, the abnormal EGFR, and did not identify any false positives. The remaining 23 participants made at least 1 or more errors. The most frequent error was failing to recognize an abnormally low EGFR. 20 participants overlooked the abnormal EGFR result, and only 5 participants spotted it. Although participants were better at identifying flagged results, there was still considerable variation in performance. 15 participants identified all 3 flagged results. The remainder failed to detect 1 or more. 3 participants did not detect any flagged results whatsoever. Overall, each abnormal flagged result was overlooked by 6 participants, but they weren't the same participants for each. 2 participants had false positives or identified a normal result without a flag as being out of range. Participants described various weaknesses in the display of the stimulus that could have contributed to these errors. The qualitative data revealed several reasons as to why participants may have failed to identify abnormal values in this study. Additionally, we can speculate on root causes of these issues based on the universal principles of design. For example, visibility, cognitive load, highlighting, figure to ground, priming, familiarity, and magnitude may have all contributed to errors in this study. The EGFR description provided a range for mild to moderate decreased kidney function. However, it had no flag, reference range, or units. Understandably, this caused confusion for participants. It can be difficult for non-clinical users to recognize when the ranges reflect degrees of impairment or classes of abnormality. Instead, the report could display the EGFR results with a normal range, such as greater than 90, and then ranges for impairment. This approach is already being used in the report for the hemoglobin A1C over total hemoglobin values. Another way online lab results displays could be improved is to leverage the value of pre-attentive attributes. Pre-attentive attributes are things that we process so quickly that it requires no effort and they pop out at us. There are 4 common categories of pre-attentive attributes: color, form, movement, and spatial positioning. How many 3s are there in this array? To complete this task without pre-attentive attributes, similar to the stimulus in our study, we have to process the array serially by examining each potential target and comparing it to our criteria to determine whether it is a target or merely a distractor. However, when we do use pre-attentive attributes, like in this example, the array is processed more holistically, which makes task completion faster because our eyes are drawn to the targets which pop out. Targets in these arrays are detected quickly regardless of how many distractors there are in the array. For example, let's pretend that Waldo is an abnormal lab result. Are we faster detecting it in this scenario or this one? We argue that pre-attentive attributes could significantly improve patient attention, recognition, and understanding of medical information such as online lab results by making abnormal values easy to see at a glance and thereby reducing the patient's cognitive load. Similarly, Colin Ware asserts that important data should be represented by graphical elements that are more visually distinct than those representing less important information in information visualizations. There were some limitations to our study. We did not compare our stimulus to other possible display types. Additionally, our interview question asked participants to identify out-of-range values, and that may not have drawn their attention to abnormal results without flags such as the EGFR. We also had a small, well-educated sample of women with extensive use of online lab results, and they may not be representative of the entire population. Undoubtedly, people appreciate access to their online lab results. However, this study showed that there may be challenges associated with the most basic step of interpreting lab results, detecting abnormal results. Many participants in this study overlooked flagged values and other abnormal results. 2 even falsely identified results as abnormal when they weren't. We conclude that these displays are failing to make abnormal results obvious and easy to detect for laypeople. Developers must use evidence-based design principles to help users efficiently and accurately detect abnormal values in their online lab results and other medical reports. Thank you for listening to our presentation, and please feel free to reach out if you have any questions.